This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the commercial and industrial changes. So while we are presenting our few slides, please feel free to add any questions into the chat box, or at the end, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions at that time. But like I said, we'll be monitoring that, so please feel free to ask away. So for anyone who is new to this process, just our normal introductory slide on the ZMod project. This project was taking place over the last 3.5 years. The board did adopt a new zoning ordinance on March 23rd of this year that replaced our previous 1978 zoning ordinance. We had over 100 public meetings on this topic, and we are really pleased with the result of this project. The new ordinance itself is about half the size of the previous 1,200-page ordinance. We've reduced the number of articles from, I think it's 20 articles and 6 appendices, all in different PDF links, to 9 articles and just 1 appendix. This is now all in one easy-to-use online document. It's hosted on a platform called Encode Plus. You'll see some screenshots here from a lot of the graphics and figures and charts we have included as a part of the new zoning ordinance that we do hope helps the user to navigate and to understand the regulations of the ordinance. It's definitely obviously something new. We are hearing that people are starting to really get used to the new project and to enjoy the new platform. So we hope that you've had a chance to navigate it, and please let us know if you do have any questions. The URL to our project, our ZMod project, is still posted. It is on the slide right here. So in terms of commercial and industrial uses, I did want to highlight just a few of the new uses very briefly. The first is the garden center use, and this is really a consolidation of a bunch of different uses that we would consider a garden center under the previous ordinance. Depending on the zoning district, it would either be considered retail sales, it could be considered agriculture, or it could be considered plant nursery under the previous ordinance. So rather than having the different designations based on the zoning districts, we consolidated and created one new garden center use. We hope that makes it easier to understand where and how the use can be applied. So it is going to be permitted by right in certain commercial districts and with special exception in certain residential districts. We did carry forward some use-specific standards as well for the special exception in the residential districts. The next one to highlight is the health and exercise facility. Now, previously, we would consider some of your smaller health and exercise facilities like a spin class or yoga or Pilates. We'd actually consider that a private school of special education. And I think it goes without saying that that was not very intuitive. Not a lot of people could figure out that yoga studio was considered a private school of special education. So we did carve out those exercise-related instructional type uses into a health and exercise facility small. Anything that's 6,000 square feet or less is considered small, and anything beyond that 6,000 square foot size would be considered large. Another use, this one we do really like because it lets us show off our pets, is the pet grooming establishment. You'll see my cat Walter there and Carmen's dog Kona. They have very different opinions on pet grooming, as you can see from their faces. But this is a different use. It used to be considered a personal service establishment. Wasn't very intuitive considering that the word person is in personal service establishment. So we did carve this out. We get a lot of pet grooming questions. So it is its new own use with its own use specific standards as well. Banquet hall is for those uses where you're hosting weddings, events, meetings. So it's really when the predominant use of the facility is being rented out for some type of kind of larger scale event. Zoo or aquarium, we had zoo previously in our ordinance, but we did add the aquarium piece. I think Carmen and I are big proponents. We really want a Fairfax County aquarium. We think that would be really fun. So that is a new allowance, and we have some limited permissions in the commercial districts for aquariums as well. And then last but not least on this slide is catering. This is similar to the garden center where we did have some interpretations before. It would either be considered a business service supply establishment or production processing. Neither of those were very intuitive for catering, and we do have a lot of catering establishments in Fairfax County. So we did find it to be easier, more user-friendly to carve this out as its own use, bring some of the permissions forward. We did expand the catering establishment to be in the C3 and C4 districts as well. So now a little bit of a deeper dive on some of our commercial uses first. In terms of commercial recreation, we do have indoor commercial recreation and outdoor commercial recreation. These were two of our largest consolidations that we did as a part of the ZMOD project. The indoor commercial recreation, I believe, consolidates around 13 uses that were finely grained and specifically called out previously, like bowling alleys, amusement arcades, movie theaters. And rather than having all those different uses and all the different permissions, we did want to create one way to have fun and recreate indoors under this use. Having this consolidation does allow for emerging new uses that we can't even think up, and the market's very creative when it comes to these types of recreation uses. So it does allow for some flexibility. Now we do have, we changed the permissions a little bit with the indoor commercial recreation for C3 and C4 districts. We do allow them now by right if you're coming into an existing building. And if you're not coming into an existing building and want to do a new standalone, it would be permitted by special exception with special, special permit approval. In terms of the C5 district, we would allow it by right as long as it's less than 6,000 square feet in size. And then the use is permitted in the C6 through C8 districts by right. In other certain industrial districts, there is a special permit option. And when in conjunction with another request for a rezoning or another special exception request, the applicant could choose to do a special exception concurrently to not have to go to both the BZA and the Board of Supervisors. In terms of outdoor commercial recreation, again, a very similar approach with the consolidation. I believe it was 10 different finely grained uses. This does include uses like miniature golf, ropes courses, and amusement parks. And we do allow the outdoor commercial recreation in certain of the lower residential districts, but we do have minimum lot size requirements ranging from 15 acres to 25 acres. So this is going to be something that would be permitted in certain residential districts with special exception approval. With special permit approval in those districts. In other districts, like your commercial districts, it would require a special exception going through the Board of Supervisors. Another use that kind of can go into a couple different categories depending on the characteristics is different smoking activities. So think like if you have a cigar bar or a hookah lounge. So we did want to clarify the different uses that it may fall into depending on the characteristics of the use. So in a restaurant that is serving prepared food from a kitchen throughout the entire time that the restaurant is operating using the same menu, smoking is permitted to be offered throughout the restaurant space. Now, a restaurant is limited in terms of its entertainment size. It's limited to either 15% of the publicly accessible area or 250 square feet, whichever is less. So it is going to be, we're really talking about restaurants with small entertainment spaces, like if there is a area for live music, something of that nature. The smoking lounge is the next way that smoking can occur. These are for those operations that don't want to serve any prepared food. So it's something where maybe they're serving only prepackaged food. The smoking is the key activity that is happening on this site. No accessory entertainment would be allowed in this situation, so no live music, no DJs, and the hours of operation are generally not permitted to exceed 10 p.m. So our third approach is the public entertainment use, and this is going to require special exception approval from the Board of Supervisors. So this scenario is when it's a restaurant that's exceeding that limitation, the 15% or the 250 square feet of area for entertainment, or if the characteristics are meeting the definition of public entertainment. That's going to be something that's catering primarily to adult customers. There may be a cover charge or a ticket to enter. Alcohol may be being served. So this is kind of more of getting closer towards like a nightclub type situation. The public entertainment use also does include any smoking lounge that has accessory entertainment. So those that aren't offering food, but do want that accessory entertainment component. We do like to point to the definition of public entertainment that does give some clarity on, when it's considered a restaurant versus public entertainment. And I did, the principal focus that I did mention earlier in that definition is entertainment. Massage therapy establishment. This is a new use. We previously, again, was similar to some of these other commercial uses, would either consider it office or personal service. This would depend on the type of massage that was being offered, and it was very difficult for staff to figure out exactly which use it would fall into based on the massage services offered. So what we did, we decided to combine it and to make one massage therapy establishment use. We did bring forward the permissions for that use, but now we hope that this does just make it very more clear for staff as well as for the licensing office that issues licenses to the massage therapy establishments themselves.
So for the office use in the commercial and industrial districts, as well as in PDC and PTC, now an office can include laboratory facilities, pilot plants, prototype production, and the assembly, integration, and testing of goods and products. Now, this expansion to include these research and development activities, it can't include any mass production or manufacturing. And then in the commercial and PDC districts, there can't be any of certain types of explosives. And the zoning ordinance kind of stipulates what divisions those are in terms of a classification system. And then in the commercial districts, there can't be anything that's biosafety level 4 as defined by the CDC. And those limitations can be exceeded with special exception approval. Now, of course, our zoning staff, we are not experts in explosives or biosafety levels, but if there was any question about this, we would need to reach out to experts in those matters. But we do think that this consolidation, it reflects advances in and changes in technology, and we think it'll be really important going forward. So the vehicle rental use, this is part of the vehicle sales, rental, and service use, and it was previously allowed with special exception approval in C3 through C8, except not C5. That's our neighborhood retail use. Then it's also allowed in I3 through I5 and in certain P districts. But vehicle rental companies, they did reach out to us during the ZMOD project and let us know that they are opening smaller offices in retail areas that are closer to the consumer, that their business model is no longer just those large fleets located at an airport, for instance. So we did revise the standards to allow the vehicle rental by right in C3 through C8, again, not C5, but the office space needs to be limited to 2,500 square feet. There's a maximum of 15 rental vehicles that can be kept on the site. And this by right use does not allow any car wash maintenance or refueling. And then, of course, we did carry forward the previously existing special exception option, which would allow more, like up to 25 vehicles, for instance. So we hope those changes will, we'll see some changes coming forward for Fairfax County in that way. Then I just have a couple industrial uses that I want to touch on. Now, a data center under the previous ordinance, it didn't have a separately defined use, so it had been interpreted to be a telecommunications facility, which did mean that it was allowed in most residential districts as well as all the commercial, industrial, and planned districts. So we have carved this out as a separate use under the new ordinance, and because of potential land use impacts, we have limited the permissions to C3 and C4 and I2 through I6, and then PRC, PDC, and PTC. And then to mitigate noise impacts, any cooling or ventilation or power generator type equipment does need to be enclosed, except in those heavier industrial districts, I4 through I6. That's not required there. And then also, we did add some size limits of 40,000 square feet in C3 and C4, and 80,000 square feet in I2 and I3. And I'll note those are generally office districts. And then these size limits can be exceeded with repurposing of an existing building, and that's existing as of July 1st of this year, or with a special exception approval. Now the self-storage use, those permissions have been expanded as well, and it's allowed by right now in I3 instead of previously it was allowed with special exception approval in I3. And then the other permissions were carried forward, which allow it by right in I4 through I6 and with special exception in C8. And then it's also allowed in the PDC and PTC districts. And then The standards for the I3 district, which also apply in the P districts, require the screening or enclosure of your loading and unloading areas, and then also some aesthetic limitations, which would require it to be a multi-story building. And then it does prohibit the those long lighted hallways that show the storage doors that have been part of the way they were designed in the past, but that would not be allowed in those districts. And then we also have limitations on the parking or storage of moving trucks and trailers and so forth. They're just allowed to be there for the loading and unloading purposes of the storage facility. Now, goods distribution hub, this is our name for a last mile delivery facility, and it does allow for that limited distribution of retail goods in C3 through C8 and PDC and PTC. Now, the size of the facility is limited to 6,000 square feet in C3 through C5 and 10,000 square feet in C6 through C8 and PDC and PTC. And then trucks that are delivering from the facility to the consumer are not allowed to be semi-trailers or greater than 28 feet in length. And then for parking on the site, there can be no more than 5 vehicles that are 21 to 28 feet without a special exception approval. And none of the vehicles can be more than 28 feet. And then there is also a maximum size of 80,000 square feet. And this is cumulative for the site. So if you have more than one goods distribution hub use in a shopping center, for instance, then it couldn't be more than 80,000 square feet for the whole place. And 10% needs to remain in like a customer facing use like retail sales. And then you could request a special exception for a larger size. And then I do want to note that in I4, I5, and I6, a freight distribution hub is also allowed. And so let's say you had an establishment it fits all the bills. It could be, you know, a goods distribution hub in, say, C6, but they want to go into I5. That's still allowed, of course. We would just call it a freight distribution hub in those industrial districts because it is allowed by right, and there are no use standards. There's no minimum size or anything. So solar power facility, this is our utility scale solar use. It's allowed by right in I3 through I6, requires a special exception in most of the other conventional districts, and then it's also allowed in the planned districts. And the solar panels do need to meet the setbacks for the district. We have a standard that does require a decommissioning plan. And then also in the RA district, that's an agricultural district, it does need to be on a property that has a bona fide agricultural operation. And then I'll just note that accessory solar panels that are designed to primarily meet the needs of the on-site use, that's a different use, and that is called solar collection system. So just a couple other changes. These are going to be uses that are actually classified in the ordinance as public, institutional, and community uses, but I'm going to speak to the changes that affect the commercial and industrial zoning districts. So child care center, we did expand the permissions from special exception to by right in C5 through C8, and it's also allowed in the industrial districts if it's located within an office or industrial complex, and it needs to have access from an internal roadway. And if it doesn't meet that standard, it could be approved in the industrial districts by special exception. And then we also did make the standards that relate to outdoor recreation areas consistent across all the districts. And this is the outdoor recreation area that's required in accordance with Chapter 30 of the county code. And I think it's 100 square feet per child that's using this space at one time. And then we did, of course, carry forward the other permissions, which would allow a child care center with special exception in most of the residential districts. And it continues to be by right in the C1 through C4 as well. Now, for the college or university use, we did expand the permission from special exception to by right in the C1 through C3 districts. Those are office districts, but that's only if there are no residential, like no dorms, and no large scale athletic or assembly facilities without a special exception approval. So that's intended to ensure that the use does operate most like an office in those office districts. And then we also did change it from a secondary use to a principal use in the PDC district. And so those are all the slides that we have for you. Now, please feel free to unmute and ask any questions or to type them into the chat box. And then I do have a question for you, and that is, this is our fifth and final lunch and learn that we've scheduled. So we started off with one, we did, I guess, 3 in July. And the first one was kind of a high level overview, and we talked about how to navigate the ordinance on ENCODE. Then we had one on accessory living units, then home-based businesses. Last week we talked about accessory structures and other residential changes, and then that brings us to today. And so all of this either already is or this one will be posted online. But I am wondering if you have any other topics relating to the zoning ordinance that you would like us to present in an upcoming lunch and learn. Please let us know, because we are certainly open to doing more of these. Oh, thanks, Allison. She said, great job. All right, somebody should have a question. Bill, you can usually think of something.
So we do have a question about how we can get the recording of the previous lunch and learns. I will add a link in the chat to our documents and presentations page. That website includes all of the PowerPoints as well as all of the videos. So you can watch any of them at your leisure. I will also add that we are getting ready to start outreach on signs. We're going to be doing a phase 2 zoning ordinance amendment to signs. So if you all think that this lunch and learn approach worked well, that's something that we're considering doing in addition to some evening meetings and some targeted community outreach meetings. So hopefully we will see some faces back for that outreach in the fall, late fall of this year as well. I'm trying to multitask and find this link.
So let's see. Scott asks, for the customer facing 10% requirement for goods distribution, would that cover folks coming in to pick up packages like your Amazon lockers or more retail sales? I do think that if, as long as they allow the customers to kind of enter and exit, part of the building, I think that would work. We really just want to keep that placemaking activities, keep this an activated space, because that really is the purpose for those districts. So we wanted to at least keep some of that happening, and then that way maybe people aren't really realizing that the back of the store function is much larger than it previously would have been.
We have a question, more of an overall question about the modernization. How has the level of input, level of confusion, concern, frustration from citizens been ever since ZMOD was adopted on July 1st? That's a good question. I think we got a lot of questions early on about just navigation and where things went. It seems like everybody's starting to learn ENCODE now, and we've gotten a lot of great anecdotal feedback about it's so much easier to have the use table. The graphics are great, and the search function is really wonderful to have. Carmen, did you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I would say that when the most questions we get do relate still to accessory living units and home-based businesses, just in terms of things that come into our email boxes with questions. and those were big topics during the development of the ordinance, and I think people are still, kind of learning how to navigate those permission processes and so forth.
Any other questions or comments? If not, you all know where to find me and Carmen. You can also contact our planner of the day. Our websites have lots of great resources, so please feel free to reach out if you do have any questions.
And if you think of any additional training topics, just let us know.
That too, yes. All right. Well, hope everybody enjoys their lunch, and thank you for being along in the Lunch and Learn ride with us. Have a great day.
Bye.